Oh, one second.
Resolution 2019-31, resolution of certification of the closed meeting of June 20th, 2019 pursuant to section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended. Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Ports Redevelopment and Housing Authority has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to affirmative recorded votes in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom Information Act. And whereas section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia law, and two, only such public business matters were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, considered by the Board of Commissioners in this closed meeting. Chairs need a motion to go back into.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Jiggets,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
Yes.
and Chair Smith.
Yes. Before we go back into our next, you got something, Mr. Lane?
Yeah, before you go back and close that, I wanted to go over the budgets for the various communities. If you have that, I just want to do that real quick.
They need to pass that resolution for those. two
Yeah,
other
pass
items.
those first, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Commissioners, before you have resolution 2019-28. Resolution authorizing execution of purchase and sale agreement of one or more deeds, bargain and sale with American Retail Developers LLC and CPG Acquisition and Development LLC, and or its signs for the development of certain property identified as approximately 9.5 acres portion of certain land located at 1817 Frederick Boulevard, tax parcel 0189-0320.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved properly second.
All right,
Secretary?
Commissioner Jiggets,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
Yes.
and Chair Smith.
Yes. Alrighty. Commissioners, before you have resolution 2019-29, a resolution authorizing execution of a purchase of sale agreement with one or more deeds of bargaining and sale with Job Ventures LLC and or its assigned for the development of certain property identified as 1402 Hamilton Avenue, tax map parcel 0300-0150. Chairs need a motion. Everybody ain't got to speak at once.
I'm not familiar with this property. Can you tell us a little bit about this first?
That's the Hamilton that we just said, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did 1402. That was that piece by the Marios and the Pelicans. Yeah.
I move.
Okay.
I make the motion, we accept it.
Okay.
Sale of
Chairs
that
need a
property.
second?
Second.
I can't do it.
I can't do it either.
Why not?
I have
Interest.
a personal interest.
Can I second the motion but abstain from the actual vote?
No.
I'm not gonna have nothing to have it.
I have no interest whatsoever in it, so I can make a
Table it.
motion. If you can't abstain from the vote, I wouldn't make a motion. If
No,
you have to
no.
abstain from the vote, you can't, I would,
No, he right, no, he's
you
not.
need to stay out. It's just between you and me.
That's not enough.
Oh,
Well,
you
yes.
got, if you motion, we can still vote.
Yeah, you can vote.
Oh, but them two are not gonna.
No.
vote.
He
because
can't
you're not
vote.
gonna have
He's
enough.
gotta-
No, us three can vote.
Oh, yeah, we can vote, you
Yeah, we just
can't.
need a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, just you need need your motion.
But then you only have three.
3 is
You don't
majority.
know, you gotta have
Got 5
four.
people.
You gotta have
Three is
four.
majority.
3 is the majority
Yeah, but not to-
present.
You're right, I'm sorry.
No, I don't think, I think you gotta have
Yes,
four.
you got 5. Remember, you can do a board with 5, 7, 9, 11 people.
No, I'm saying for the vote.
You just have to the
Can three
majority.
You can't just do three.
It's can three?
Majority.
Okay,
Yes,
Karen
the
said
majority.
I don't think can you please refer to the bylaws before we go any
Well,
further?
well, we
'Cause I don't think you can.
can we do the vote and get a read on it?
Say we
Y'all
help
can
the
get a
city,
read
right?
now,
Huh?
all you gotta do
Said
is
you
pull
wanna
up the
help the city, right?
bylaws.
I'm for
I know
it.
you are.
I ain't against it, I just wanna be right. I don't wanna have to come back and
Karen, do you have the bylaws?
Yes.
get a read. That's why those, I don't go there, but.
This says, "Full commissioner shall constitute a quorum for the purpose of conducting authority business,
Yeah,
and exercising its powers and for all other purposes, but a small number may adjourn from time to time until a quorum is obtained. Action may be taken by the authority upon a vote of majority of the commissioners present when a quorum is in attendance."
and the form is what?
Four.
So
Is in
it's
attendance.
majority.
It's on page 3,
But we don't
under
have a
Article 3
second.
meetings,
Neither.
under quorum.
Did you read that part again,
Here
please?
you go, it's highlighted.
No, I got it on my phone,
Let
and
me-
I'm reading it a different way than what you all are reading it.
Okay,
You gotta have 4 to conduct business,
we got 5.
but 2 of those are not conducting business on this specific issue.
I think abstention is conducting business.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It's still present as a member.
Well, I disagree on that.
I mean,
'cause
that's
it's
fine,
not.
you disagree.
Yeah, it's not.
I guess this is gonna die then.
And the other thing that I think we have in our favor is, and you correct me if I'm incorrect, the city has asked us to act on this property because we don't reap any kind of benefit from the property. The resources will go directly to the city. We are, in terms, just the holder of the property for the city. And
It goes
so,
back
so
to
we're
the-
not getting any benefit as,
Financial benefit now.
It
okay,
goes back to the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG.
Yeah.
That's where the money goes
And
back
that's
to.
not the issue. The issue is,
your point is well made too.
the issue is,
But again, it says when a quorum is in attendance, action may be taken by the authority upon a vote of a majority of the commissioners present, so.
I mean, you can abstain, you know,
oh, pass on. Make it again.
you want me to make it again? I'll make the motion that we accept resolution 29 for 1402 Hamilton Avenue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I second,
Is the motion properly second, Madam Secretary?
All right, Commissioner Jiggets,
yes.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Abstain.
Commissioner Morgan,
Abstain.
Commissioner Commissioner Washington,
Yes.
and Chair Smith.
Yes.
Did I give you back your paper?
Yes, you did. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
All right,
I'll review that too, I'll review that too.
staff can go again. Oh, no, Mr. Blank, go ahead. Sorry.
What I want to do is just give you an update on the budgets for the various communities and looking at from July of this year to June the 30th of next year. I want to go through each, and I'll do this, I'm going to give you a handout too, but I'll do it from up here. And we're going to do them one at a time. Here's the, pass the rest of it. Package out to you. Yeah, hold that.
Bruce, did you give this before this meeting?
This is a community presentation.
Okay,
Here's a,
okay, what I did, and just try to give you some idea what's going on in East Bob. Westbury, we have 16 units over which are cottages. The 16 when it was built, we just 16 units. So we pay to the city roughly $2,400 in pilot. That's payment in lieu of taxes that we pay the city every year on that particular property. We estimate that the
Mr. Blends is smart,
The property tax on that, the insurance on that property is roughly $13,000 a year. Salary and benefits, $31,000. We anticipate yearly fees be paid to the management fund, which comes into here, roughly $2,262 for managing those particular property. And miscellaneous operating expenses roughly is $34,760. So the total expenses there is like $84,000. And what we did to come up with, so we figured there's gonna be run a deficit of roughly $17,000. You take the subsidy of the $43,000 and take the 23, which is the 5% vacancy loss. You figure, although we're showing what it would be if it was 100% leased up to 24,320, but from a business standpoint, you figure you have anywhere from a 3 to 5% vacancy loss. So we're gonna use 5 to be more conservative. So, and based on that, then you see there would be a deficit there of $17,776. Move to the next one.
We'll pass it out.
Yeah.
Is it
No,
Dale?
that next one they already had.
Oh, no.
Okay.
What's the next one in your packet?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter, okay.
Okay, the Dale home,
This is Dale.
Okay, well, he's passing it around to us now.
yeah, Dale one, that was a rehab property over in Dale. And that was supported by vouchers attached to the unit. So with that, roughly, the rent coming in roughly gonna be $1,205,000.
Thank you.
Salaries and benefits gonna be $257,000. Fees that will come into the COCC will roughly be $70,174. We have a mortgage on that property, which is $389,000 a year. That includes for the insurance and for the insurance and for the property tax, including that $389,000. Miscellaneous operating expenses $451,000, and we think that may be a little high since it was just rehab. We really will not know until roughly about a year what the crew expenses are gonna run on Dale. And we're paying a pilot payment in lieu of taxes on the property to the city, $15,360. So when you do the math on that one, the total expenses come to $1,000,001, and down the bottom, $1,000,001, and then if you take this figure here, the $1,000,002 in rents coming in, the $1,000,001 in expenses, it would have a deficit of roughly $14,000. But we think that maybe our expenses are a little high, so it should break even on that particular one. That's Dale 1. The next one is Dale 2. We figure we're gonna get $1,000,002 in rents coming in. We got the salary and benefits for the employees and maintenance staff out there, $260,000. Fees to the seals, fees coming into this building here is roughly $61,000 for managing it. We anticipate a mortgage about $400,000 a year on this particular property. Other expenses about $366,000. Pilot to the city, $17,000. Total expenses $1,000,001. And when you do the math on that one, we will have a net profit of roughly $149,000 figure will be coming on that particular property. Next.
One real quick question on that.
Mhm.
Obviously, when you add Dale 1 and Dale 2,
Here you go.
it's fine, but I know Dale 1 had a different tax credit investor than Dale 2. And I thought part of the purpose of RAD was to stabilize our revenues. So is everybody on board, I guess? I mean, they have to be, but with a continuing deficit of 14,000? Now, obviously, the tax credit investor gets that, and that could have been done on purpose in order to create, because I know they paid well more than $1 per credit, which is unusual, so, okay. I think I answered my question.
Okay, Hamilton. Now Hamilton, that one, to be honest with you, when it was set up, and by the time, that one's a problem for us. Roughly, income coming on that property is gonna be roughly about This Hampton one, it would be about $854,000 coming in, but you got salary and benefits of 162, fees coming in for managing that property years, 32,000. Mortgage on that property, which include property tax and insurance, roughly about $463,000, and other expenses, $438,000. So when you look at the amount of rent that's coming in based on your expenses, you're looking at $254,000 shortfall on that particular property. And we're all gonna be looking at trying to go back to VHDA, since they hold the mortgage on this, to see if maybe we can refinance this property, so that, it can perform much better financially on that particular.
Do we have a copy of Hamilton out on?
It's right down the corner of the table.
I'm sorry.
What was it, last fiscal year? Was it still doing an
Yes.
operating loss?
Yes, yes. The next one is Hamilton 2, which is,
I don't think I wasn't finished with.
oh, I'm sorry.
So pass Hamilton too, so we can,
So what, well, I'm still on this one.
okay, go
Which
ahead.
is, so how much did it bleed last year?
Roughly about a little more,
More.
yeah. And,
And that's the only option, go back towards, to go back to VHDA?
well, because VHDA hold the mortgage, might be holding the mortgage on it. The other piece too is, since it's a state agency, they will be willing to work with us, you know, if we had to refinance this particular property.
What's the
And
term?
remember also, we had a problem, that's where we had the mold issue at too.
Right.
Yeah, so we had a lot of expenses there, and we're still monitoring the mold situation over there, just to make sure, so, you know, to do a mold remediation, what does it cost, what was it cost per unit, cause we put some folks in the hotels and
About
things like.
600.
How much was it?
For them, for the environmental specialists to come out, it's about $600. But it can cost anywhere between $6,000 and $8,000 to do the remediation.
We had a couple bills.
Per unit.
Yes.
And there wasn't any grant funds available that you all could go after for the remediation, the mold remediation, are you sure?
So,
And then we had to discuss it with the investor, and they were able to tell us whether or not they wanted to expense it or capitalize it as an improvement. And it's really their call. I'm still in talks.
Yeah,
with
the interest rate on
Um,
VHDA.
in the
Ain't that
terms,
much.
how long? 30 years?
well, the mortgage on this was, I think it's 30
30
years.
or 40.
But the
Well,
interest rate couldn't have been that
I
much.
can tell you, okay, it matures in 2046.
Yeah, so,
Over here.
Say what?
No, I
Said
just
I won't
have
be
close glasses.
You're not gonna be here.
No,
Well, I'm gonna be
so-
here.
I'm gonna be here too. I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Look,
They did want to work with us on this.
so 6 to 8,000 for, how much did the contractor agree to participate in that?
What do you reference? What contractor?
It's for roughly, how old is
Came back
Hamilton
to say
now?
they were
It's
gonna
not
fix
that
the
old.
mold
About
issues.
2010 was phase 1 and 2012 was phase 2.
So it's less than 10.
Okay, so it might have been a 35-year type of, so interest rates
They
were
wasn't that
significantly
much.
higher at that point.
Not that
Gotcha.
much.
Any other questions on this particular one?
I hear you saying you can go back to VHDA to see if we can refinance it. But in the interim, I mean, we talking about bleeding $200,000 every year. I just wanna know what's the alternate or fallback plan or something. And I understand you say the mold remediation, but per unit. And I find it hard to believe that there aren't any federal funds available to assist the housing authority with
It's not
that.
federal property.
See, this
Huh?
not,
It's
it's
not
not
federal
federal.
property.
This is,
It doesn't, I mean, I understand it's not federal property, but they've got brownfield money out there for different things, so there might be something out there for, I don't know.
And we'll be looking at that to see.
Okay.
We'll be
Yeah.
looking at that. Okay, next. Hamilton 2 is in 3 pockets. You got Hamilton 2, you got some 50% units in there. You got some 60% units, 50%, 60%, and.
Over center.
Yeah, that's what's going on,
Next
that
page.
was, yeah.
Keep coming up.
Oh, up.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah. And then you got, but you got 3 phases in there, but the thing is, when we did all of that for Hamilton 2, based on expenses and all that, for those 3 in there, roughly about a $46,000 deficit on Hamilton 2. And we will be also, we're looking to see how we can, go ahead and bring all this down. Next one.
So the operating expenses don't include any depreciation or any non-cash
No,
items, that's pure
no,
cash?
that's pure cash. Yeah, we did it, based on just pure cash. Okay, Hope Village, and that's over in the Westbury area. That's probably base vouchers attached to those units. Once again, the salary and benefits on that was $95,000. Fees we received for managing that on a yearly basis, roughly $22,000. The mortgage payment runs at $190,000 a year. Miscellaneous expenses, $132. Total expenses, $441. And when you take the, we use the 3% vacancy loss, which is the $449. Subtract that from the $441. It had a net, showing a net of roughly $7,400 net. And that one matures in 2045. VHDA, that's Virginia Housing Development Authority.
Right.
Yeah,
That's the one acronym I know.
Give it five, sister, I don't know what they talking about.
That's the one I know.
King Square, once again, that one is, we have vouchers in there, salaries on that one, maintenance staff and management staff is $120. Fees, we get $31,000 a year for managing that particular property. The mortgage run about $379,000 a year. Miscellaneous expenses, $101,000. Total expenses, $632,000. Roughly running a minor deficit of $11,000. Now, and your mortgage is to MMA Financial, and that one matures in 2048.
Who's King Square? I've never, don't think I've visited. Who are they? I didn't even know. Did you know about King Square, Bruce?
It's in the Westbury.
It's right across, it's off on County Street. Phoebus sits on this side. If you go straight down, it looks like Westbury, but it's on the opposite side.
I know, yeah. I didn't know that was ours.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is Phoebus, which is a high-rise building. We get $1.2 million in rents there. It's all vouchers. Rents are $850 a month. Salaries and benefits run about $260,000. For managing that property, we receive $84,000 a year for managing that property. The mortgage on that property is $654,000 a year. This particular property, for some apparent reason, the mortgage went from $30,000 a month up to $54,000 a month, right?
Oh, wow.
And we're still trying to figure out how that happened. So we're trying to dig into that more to see what happened. It started out at $30,000, then it jumped up to $54,000.
Yeah, I didn't have a fixed interest rate.
I wonder if
There's an
there's- I
escalating
wonder if
clause.
there's an interest only
Some
rate
kind of
for us.
escalating
Right,
clause.
so we'll, hopefully by the next board meeting, I'll be able to tell you that.
That's-
So it's running, we figure it's gonna run a deficit of about $108,000 dollars a year. But the good thing, come back down a little bit. The good thing with that, because we can increase the rents every year, although the tenants will pay the same, their portion will not change in a sense, we can increase the rent. So beyond, we probably in about 2 years, it'll balance itself out, or those rents will continue to go up, based on those vouchers being in this particular property here. Next one. And also, we pay the city roughly $75,000 a year in property tax.
Wow.
That's what we pay to the city, 75, and that's included in the mortgage payment. But $75,000 roughly pay the city on this particular property. Next one.
Are we supposed to be paying the city on that property?
Well,
Per our agreement for 1956 and
no,
forward?
because remember that agreement only was for those, was for strictly public housing back in '56. You didn't, the tax credit, engine was not out there in '56. It was just strictly public housing. Jeffrey Wilson, Ida Barber.
Paying the city now, even though it's owned by the housing authority.
Lincoln is coming down, but roughly in subsidy, we get 931,000 a year from the government. Tenants pay roughly 34 units left there, roughly $79,000. Lincoln should be hopefully empty by September. All the rest of the family should be out. And it's gonna show a net income of 162,000 it will net $162,000. Then you got Swanson,
Thank you, sir.
which is built, Swanson, we get $1.1 million in subsidy from the government. Tenants roughly pay $405,000 a year in rent, using a 5% vacancy loss, and look at your expenses and offset. Swanson really will have a positive cash flow of $206,000.
Amazing.
Yeah, it would have, and that's because it's being subsidized by the Section 9 money coming from HUD, the subsidy coming from HUD on that particular one. And
Six.
we pay we pay pilot to the
Oh,
city.
on Lincoln? No,
On
Lincoln's in
Lincoln.
a, Lincoln is in a negative.
That's
So what you,
Swanson.
Right.
oh, that one's Swanson, yeah, we do pay pilot on Swanson.
Which one are we looking, Swanson?
Swanson.
Swanson's in a positive.
Yeah, it's in a positive.
206.
Yeah, $206,000. Yeah.
We really need that.
And Lincoln is in the positive, 162,000.
And the
The
reason
reason
why.
it's a negative
Lincoln
is we
is a
don't pay
negative.
pilot on Lincoln, because for pilot, the payment in lieu of tax, you take the tenant rent minus all of the utilities, and that gets you your net shelter rent, and you take 10%. So the utilities that we pay on behalf of the Lincoln residents is a little greater than the rent coming in, so they don't.
So it's in a deficit.
The budget you all, I thought I saw was a positive of 509.
And that's because from capital grants, we get a line item called 1406, which is operations. And Mr. Bland already had these in place, and I had discussed with him. We strategically placed that 20-some% that we get from capital, we put it under Swanson. Because Lincoln going down, you don't want, but you're also, those 7 amps are kind of fungible. You don't really want to give them to Seaboard 1 and 2 and the cottages, because those have those equity investors. Now Pine and Holly that showed in a deficit, we wholly own those now,
Right.
as of last year of April. So if we can use some of that 300 and some that we kind of stuck under Swanson to.
Yeah, and I'm gonna show you that on when I get to COC, see how that works. Next one.
That's it, Mr. Graham, for those.
Okay, go next. What you next?
Can't see that.
Okay, up here is money that comes into this building here. Over here, over here is showing all of the communities over here, and then it shows the pots of money. We have the money that comes into, and also show what the things we get and stuff like that. But what you see is, you see what's coming to Seaboard, the 49,000, then you see the 20,000, and you see that those pots. Now, you got what you call total anticipated yearly fees you pay to the COCC, which is $238,000. Now that money is coming from 2 communities, coming from Seaboard and coming from Swanson. Right, that $238,000. That coming to what's called the Central Office Cost Center. And then everything else is coming into what we call the management fund or business activity fund, which is $439,000. And then what we do is we move down here, come down. If we move down here, slide me down. And what happened here is, if you look here, you see the money coming into the COCC. And part of that is capital, when we get our capital fund, which is $1.9 million. Of that $1.9 million, $480,000, 25% of that we use for public housing operation. It can't be used for salary. It can be, that $480,000 will only be used on the public housing communities. It can't be used in the COCC. And that's coming out of the $1.9 million, 25%. And then you have another 10% coming out, which is can be used in the COCC, this building here, for salaries, which is $192,245. Then you also have another column of that money, which is capital fund 1408, coming out of capital fund, it can only be used for management improvement. Examples would be like computer upgrade, travel, et cetera, which is $192,000, and that's on the public housing operation side. So in reality, you only got two pots of money that you can really use when you talk about setting up your budget for your COCC, which is in this building here. There's $835,000 and there's $547,000. When you do the math on those two, that's where you're coming up with your total budget. You're coming up with your total budget here to come over here. Now, historically in the past, what the Housing Authority had did, they did a budget based on what I call using money that only come in one time, development money.
Mhm.
That's one-time money.
For salaries?
That's one-time money. You know, like I use Dale 2, for example, you got $136,000.
Mhm.
You never take development money and project it as doing salaries, because it's not, it's one-time money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, we had a bunch of money here many years ago, and that's what ate up all of the money.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with the one-time money?
You use that one-time money should be used for capital development, which means is hard costs, building units. It should never be used, what I call for soft costs, for salary, because you get it this year, there's no guarantee you're gonna get it next year.
So you
Makes
probably
sense.
could use it for the security.
Yeah, she's joking.
No, I'm
No,
not.
I mean, you're serious. You're serious, but that's a good illustration. Yeah, yeah.
So for example, okay, we got Kroger's in here. We was getting $25,000 a year from Kroger's, but the last part of that $25,000 is this year.
Mm.
If you look over here for 2020 going forward, Kroger's not over here.
That's right.
It's gone. Once it, we was getting that money. So you don't have that in there when you look on the sheet. So, and then you have, for example, Lexington Place is gonna be coming in. That's development money for doing Lexington.
So why did Kroger give us $25,000?
When
We
it was
received new market
New
tax
tax
credits.
credits,
Yeah.
right, but that was on for a period of time. But eventually, all that was rolled in, trying to figure that would be the budget for COCC and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, what I'm saying is you only got two pots of money you can really depend on. This pot here with 8, which is on the COCC, and then what I call your business activity account. This money on this side over here, which is public housing, it can only be used for public housing. That means those properties in the field can't be used in this building here. So what I'm saying is, going forward, we're gonna be making sure that we'll position the housing authority where we will not fall back to the point where the one-time money we use as more salaries, there's no guarantee going forward in the future. And that should never happen. So we're working on that to try to get, to make sure that whatever we do going forward, that we can support what we're actually doing. And the other thing too, you'll find that sometimes you have money in reserves, like we have from time, that money restricted to what you can use it for. Because we might could have $3 million, $4 million in reserve, but if it's operation for the public housing property, we can't use it for anything else, or HUD will not allow that. That's the most important thing. And I gave you those handouts in case you have any questions. I know we went through this real quick because of time, and we can do it again too. But I just want to give you some idea of what we have.
Thank you.
Now, who performs the checks and balances on all of these numbers? Is that coming from you or from staff?
The CFO,
Okay.
Chief Financial
I
Officer.
thought we didn't, okay,
You do. Sure.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess I gotta be, I gotta be honest with you, I don't know what the heck you just went over. I really don't. I was here over here this afternoon to talk about this sheet of paper, and I walk in here, all of a sudden I feel I'm about 15 minutes from leaving. And I get to, and I appreciate it. I'm leaving here with this here, and somehow I'm supposed to match it up with this. I got, I don't know, 8 or 9 properties that you're projecting a loss. I don't know what I'm looking at. I mean, I appreciate getting these pieces of paper and I'll digest them. I just wish the courtesy of just having a little bit more time to look at it rather than when I'm starting to walk out the door.
And we can go back through this, you know, it's, that's no problem. These are just preliminary, things.
Well, if you got the time to send me a note about active shooter training, send me this stuff. Holy cow, send me an email before I walk in here. I want to be able to help.
Okay.
And I can't help if I'm seeing it 10 minutes before I walk out the door. This is too important to us to spend, got it, I've said it out.
Well, I do appreciate from what you presented, I'm seeing a little bit of the light as to, you know, and I'm getting that you're limited by law with certain percentages and what you can do with certain money. And I get that, particularly when you're talking about grant money, HUD money, reserves. My understanding from takeaway from the reserves, well, we can use that for the housing choice vouchers deficit. I think that was one of my
On the reserve
takeaway.
money.
On the,
You can't
no, I'm
use
talking about the
reserve,
reserve
right.
part, talking about the reserve.
Yeah.
So I can't say, I know a little bit more today than I did at the last meeting in May, because now I know that there's a pot of reserve money, but we can't use that reserve money for the deficit as it pertains to Hamilton. That's where we gotta go back and talk to VHDA about refinancing. Okay, see, I'm trying to.
And also for every housing choice voucher we have leased up, right now, we're getting 405,000 coming to the COCC, because we get $19.50 per lease up per unit, that comes into the COC. So as the vouchers, go up, you know, we project probably another $100-some thousand will be coming in, once we get these extra vouchers and stuff like that. Yeah. And all this is just draft, we're still working through it at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle.
And I too understand that this is not the final picture. You just, like she said, we're getting more information. And I appreciate what Bruce said. I want to be able to link this information with the other kinds of things. I do have another question. The market rate rents, are they calculated in the projections up here? Because what I understand is people who live in our properties at, if I'm using the right word, market rate, is that correct? Okay. Their rents are driven by the market. So if they need to be increased, you increase them accordingly. And what percentages of properties are we making available to them?
The tax credit properties at Hamilton Place, the 56 units, they aren't actually based on the market rate units. Our rents are lower than the normal market rate
I agree with that.
However, when we can increase yearly, which we have, and we have a rent increase for 8/1, so.
Say that.
We have a rent increase, we can increase those rents at any time.
So for the last 2 or 3 years, you have steadily increased the rates?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you calculate your yearly rent increases in those properties?
Well, what happens is, it's a calculation, because you have your rent and your utility allowance, which can't go over your max rents. So we have 50 and 60% of the AMI. So say a 1-bedroom max rent is $1,000. That's to include your rent, your total rent, plus the utility allowance cannot exceed that $1,000.
Okay.
And those are given by VHDA.
Right, so if 1 year your rent goes up $25 and the next year it goes up $50, that's like 100% increase. Does that ever happen or something like that, or $100?
As long as we stay within the VHDA income limits and rent limits, where we can increase how often as we want to.
Okay, I think I'd like to talk about this. I'll schedule some, so I can better understand this a little bit.
And then I can show you the schedule, how
Right.
the utility line was tying with the rent, and how VHDA has max rents for each unit size.
Right, and I want to say, I understand clearly that our rents are much lower than in the communities and what people are paying for. However, the people I'm obligated to answer these kinds of questions are our residents, and they go ballistic when they see these rents go up like that. And they have the choice to not live with us, but it was just news to me. And when he presented this, I said, well, where is that calculated in there? And I'm sure it is. Okay.
And like I said, these were just draft, and, Shannon and myself and staff, we can set with interview one-on-one and further go through these just to get some idea. These are not the final numbers, so you get some idea. Because I just wanted to, so you could see how the properties themselves was performing financial-wise. And then what pots of money we receive from those properties that come into the COCC, and what pots we can use for different categories, salaries and other stuff that comes in.
Right, because what I'm hearing is perhaps we have overstated our ability to pay our staff because of, or it could have happened because we use monies that aren't committed to being there every year for salaries. I thought I heard that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Blank.
Let's have lunch
Anything
this
else?
week, dude. Let's have lunch this week.
Commissioners, for this next item for closed session, because I can just see the time waning on everybody, you guys want to go ahead and do this closed session now, or you want to defer the next meeting? Commissioners,
Don't, let me see, what is it about?
We're here.
It stopped raining
Closed
outside.
session if it gets to be
Let's do it.
laborious, but,
Let's do it.
and I think I know what we're talking about, but I don't know.
So this is the point where staff can go ahead and go home, is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm y'all ready to go.
Yeah,
I'm
let
ready
the
to go.
staff go.
The sun's out and stuff.
Okay, yeah, I can stay.
So they can go, right?
here we go.
We just have to read the
Let's read
resolution.
resolution.
Okay.
Resolution 2019-32, resolution of intent to meet in closed meeting. Whereas the Virginia Freedom Nation Act provides that the Board of Commissioners meet in closed meeting for personnel matters as set forth in section 2.2-3711, A1 of the Code of Virginia as amended. The personnel matters discussion of the executive annual performance evaluation, and therefore be it resolved that in compliance with the Virginia Freedom Nation Act, the above referenced sections of Virginia Code, the Board of Commissioners shall reconvene in closed meeting on June 20th, 2019 for the discussion of the executive director's annual performance evaluation, A1. Chairs need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Jiggins,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
Yeah.
Chair Smith.
Yes.
Y'all drive